Hello, and welcome back to the Performance Marketing Unlocked podcast. We are still in Cannes. This is episode 2 of our Cannes Lion 2024 podcast mini-series. And we're once again in our apartment, and I'm once again joined, me being Joseph Arthur, multimedia editor at PMW. Can't forget that. Your host as always. Joined by Robin Langford, PMW's editor.
Hello, Joe. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, we're recording a little bit earlier this time. It's day 4 of Cannes Lions, the Thursday. Although it does feel a little bit like things are coming to a conclusion, I would say.
Yeah, I think Cannes Line is very much front-loaded, so by the time you get to Thursday, quite a few people are also going home.
Yeah, I know. I've been chatting to people, and the meetings are getting progressively less frequent, which is nice.
The rosé is flowing a bit more freely.
A little bit more freely. We were just saying you actually got to eat lunch today, which is a nice benefit on Cannes.
It felt very civilized. It was lovely.
Yeah, things are starting to return to, I guess, normalcy in terms of the day. Still not totally, though. I did have to sprint from the Martinez Hotel, which is right at one end of the Croisette, all the way up to the Palais I'd actually given myself a no-minute window.
Wow.
It was one meeting straight to the other, so that
is a first-year Cannes move.
Very first-year Cannes move. I found that out the hard way, but I think that's just the learning curve, I suppose. But this episode here is a good chance, I suppose, for us to kind of take stock of the festival as it's sort of come and gone in a flash, and obviously we'll still have coverage coming out over the next week or so. But Robin, it's been your second Cannes Lions. How has it been for you going from 2023 to 2024?
It's been a lot of fun. Weirdly, it's felt more intense, and
the voice is still there.
Listeners might hear a little hoarseness in my voice, and I do apologise for that. It's actually felt even more intense this year than last year, and I'm not quite sure how, because I felt I should have been more prepared, having been here already once. But I think that may also be because there's been a ramping up of activity, and I think we've all noticed that. Genuinely quite a positive vibe. Yeah,
the vibe's been great, and from what I've heard being a first-timer, it sounds like this is a sort of a return to the Cannes of old, with a lot of people enjoying themselves, and there's more activations. We had some great sunshine to start the week off, and everyone's really just here to sort of, work hard, play hard. It very much feels like that mantra, which is what you expect when you think parties and super yachts, but it's all business and marketing. It's like something out of a movie, to be completely honest.
I think I was summing it up in my head today. It's like, imagine one of the most crazy holidays you've ever had, combined with one of the most crazy work days you've ever had, and times that by 5 and smash it all together each day, and that's how it feels.
The whole thing's just been a blur. It's come and gone in a flash. It feels like only yesterday we were sitting here recording, and that was actually 2 days ago. So things are come and gone quickly. But we'll also, as we did in the previous episode, we have been up and down the Croisette, both of us, over the last couple of days. We've got some more snippets and tidbits from talking heads, insiders, experts, just industry movers and shakers have been kind enough to give us their time. So we look forward to hearing from them. They're going to be talking what surprised them most at Cannes Lion this year, as well as some of their biggest learnings and takeaways. I suppose what they're going to take with them when they head home from the French Riviera tomorrow, over the weekend. And I think maybe we'll share some of our own insights, Robin.
Absolutely, yes.
And just on the busyness as well, before we jump in, I know you said it feels like it was even more hectic than last year. Do you think that's maybe PMW is just making a little bit more of an impression than we did last year, where,
Well, I won't name the person because they haven't given me a testimonial, but that someone did say PMW is had a very high impact in the industry, and I think we are noticing more people taking notice. But I think that also is testament to the performance marketing industry, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later on in the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're making an impression, which is great, but it is a testament to performance marketing, which I guess in terms of my surprises, and we'll start there. My biggest surprise, I was saying to you earlier, it's the festival of creativity, but there's this, we were talking in the previous episode, this sort of fringe tech performance element to the festival. But a lot of the discussion I've had, particularly in the last 2 days, is that idea of brand formance and how there's an increasing convergence between media and creativity and performance, because of perhaps Gen AI and data, it has moved up the funnel a little bit into branding and creative.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think there's also just more touch points people can measure now. So we talk about cost per click, cost per acquisition, cost per lead, the kind of things that people talk with performance marketing. But increasingly, you can measure other things. You can measure brand lift, emotions, and all sorts of other areas. And they are higher funnel, but people are expecting those in every aspect of your marketing campaigns, whether that is a brand level. Brand level thing, or whether it's at the bottom of the funnel and a short-term sales activation.
Yeah, I guess it kind of fits within all areas of the funnel, and that's been my big surprise, is performance marketing is really becoming more and more full funnel. Robin, what about yourself? What's been your biggest surprise of the event this year?
I met up with an old a PR colleague, Stephen Jenkins from Too Many Dreams. Little shout out to him, and he's been here a few times. And I think what surprised me actually was the Cannes Film Festival is here a little bit before this, and it's actually smaller than the Cannes Lion Festival. I did not realise that. I always just assumed movies, Hollywoodland is the place to be, the big superstars, the movie stars, but actually so much more goes on at Cannes Lion, so much more investment, and also I think it's because of the massive advertising deals that happen there. And I think it's a sign of very good health of the global advertising industry, and within that, performance marketing, as you'll have seen from the Advertising Association Walk figures recently, a few months ago, show that performance marketing is leading much of that growth, as in those paid social channels, paid search channels. And so I think the fact that Cannes Lion is bigger than the Cannes Film Festival kind of exemplifies that. And also, just on a purely brand level, yesterday we had Elon Musk in the
waiting
Palais.
On the celebrity name drop.
And then we had Taylor Swift at Amazon Port. So two of probably the most talked about people in the world, certainly in the top 10, talked about people in any frame within the world, were here. And that very much shows the pulling power of the global advertising industry.
I think it's in a really, really good position. And yeah, you talk about, performance sort of, particularly with the economic climate, it's been a little bit up and down, putting it lightly up and down. I mean, coming out of a global pandemic and the UK had a recession, performance really has kind of propped it up. And this is a big global event. You have people from near and far come for it, including the celebrity types. I mean, Absolutely. Some of the sightings we've seen Jessica Alba, I've seen the Kelsey brothers as well. I was about to call them the Kelsey twins. They're certainly not that. The Kelsey brothers, Draymond Green, an NBA star. I won't even get into all of the sporting athletes I've seen. But yeah, Elon Musk and Taylor Swift both in town on day 3. That's pretty crazy. Have you had any other celebrity sightings?
Yeah, I've said. Oh goodness, yeah. We saw Jared Leto and of course Eric Cantona and everyone else. One of my worst celebrity spottings was last night, Joe. Though, when we saw Wycliffe Jean of the Fugees, and Joe said the words that just made me sink a little bit, which was like, I'm just going to take a photo and see if my dad recognises him, which was a bit of a sobering moment for me.
It's showing my age a little bit there, that I truly had no clue who it was, but it was a very big deal to a lot of people, and it looked like he was putting on a hell of a performance. I was enjoying it, but yeah. That was, I guess, both to it, just embarrassing all round for the full PMW crew on that front. Yeah. But moving on to some of the surprises from the industry and the discussions we've had, I was talking to Rebecca Swift, the Senior Vice President of Creative at Getty Images, and I think this really exemplifies how creative and performance might be sort of merging into that brand performance, because she had a lot to say in terms of what surprised her most was just how much generative AI is now fueling creativity and the sort of increasing overlap there. So listeners, get your ears peeled and you can hear that clip from Rebecca Swift right now.
I came here honestly thinking that everybody would be talking about AI and that would be like the singular conversation. And in fact, I was actually against coming to Cannes because I thought it was going to be so singular. But what's really surprised me is actually there's been a lot of interest in talking about creativity, which is the theme of the of the festival, and craft and artistry, and how we as humans embody creativity. And yes, we might use AI as a tool, but actually what we pride ourselves in is our creativity. And so even today, listening to some of the talks about kind of slowing processes down and thinking about creating in a different way was really surprising and also very encouraging, I have to say.
Great insight there from Rebecca on, I guess, that continued brand performance, and perhaps we shouldn't have been so surprised, Robin.
No, I think certainly not. It's been something we've monitored it on Performance Marketing World over the past few years. This the absolute merger between these two things. It's hard because in a way you always do need to kind of have specialists that will focus on the beautiful creatives and really making sure that creative is seen in the right place at the right time, which is what performance is. But it's super important now for marketers to be a bit of everything, I think. If you are a performance marketer that doesn't pay attention to creative, I think you're a bad performance marketer. You've always got to pay attention to the media you are serving. And if you're a creative that isn't thinking about the data to help inform some of your creative decisions, then you might be going down a bit of a blind alley as well. It's really important to have both of those, I think, nowadays as a modern marketer. Absolutely.
And on that theme of creative and performance merging together, perhaps fueled by generative AI, Hugh Stevens, the UK Managing Director of LiveRamp. Now, Hugh's out here with LiveRamp UK for the first time this year. He spoke about the fact that, all the discussion around AI in particular was a bit of a surprise to him. He said he was a bit of a nascent when it came to AI, so he's really... I guess I'll just let you guys listen to what he thought there.
I'm very nascent in the AI space, right? It's not something that is... there are people who've probably forgotten more than I currently know. I really feel like there is a not too distant future place where the ability to take a segment of data and in very short order plan by that data, evolve the content that's going to that audience in a manner which actually creates much more streamline and probably fewer touch points of businesses as well, where everyone's taking their clip to connect more meaningful opportunities with those consumers from the point of view of putting the right thing in front of them at the right time, in the right place with the right message, what we've all been striving for God knows how many decades, right? And I do think that through that combination of the data being able to be collaborated on in a much more easy place, with clouds developing and with AI wrapped on the top, with the intelligence that you come from strong media planning with better data, and with the evolving relationships that are happening between retail and supply or within commerce networks, that is all going to be increased and enhanced by what AI can bring to it. There is a massive requirement for people within that, in my mind. I'm not a believer that AI is just going to replace it all. I know Elon said on stage the other day that that's absolutely going to happen. I just think that this human interaction is absolutely critical to make business work. All we're going to do is make things more efficient. And potentially there'll be moments where that does impact and take on this. But I think as humans, we naturally evolve to absorb these things into the way that we live, operate, work, etc.
And just quickly, we might as well go through some more of the industry here on their surprises in the next couple of clips. Listeners, you'll be hearing from Virginie Dremou. Might have got that right.
That was impressive, Joe.
Sounded okay, we'll see. She's the Vice President of Marketing and Communications International at Freewheel. She talks about some of the biggest surprises for her this year surrounding the power of live events, particularly when it comes to CTV, BVOD, AVOD. And I know we've touched on that a lot, haven't we, Robin?
Yeah, absolutely. I was on a CTV panel in Cannes as well, which was a lot of fun talking to those guys.
So listen to that clip from Virginie right now.
What really impressed me this year in Cannes is the conversation we had yesterday on the Freewheel Beach around the theme of the power of live. As everybody knows, this year is very strong in terms of live sports events. It's the Olympics happening here in France, in Paris. And we just wanted to celebrate the power of live on television to attract big audiences. I think that in a world of fragmented audience, a world of content exploding in terms of the number of streaming platforms, the number of video content that you can choose, really what's still attracting the viewers and in a way that is very engaging for the brands but also for the publishers is the power of live. And especially everything that's happening around sports. And yesterday we were so happy to welcome Olympians on the stage, and the emotion that we shared with these guys when they are just living live, whatever the sport they're doing, whether it's Olympics or Paralympics, it was so strong and so engaging. Really, that's what I will take from this Cannes this year. The importance of live on TV, and especially around sports and everything that will happen this year.
And rounding out our expert insights when it comes to what surprised them about Cannes Lion 2024, we've got Ed Fletcher, the co-managing director of Shape History, and he's got quite an interesting one that surprised him, and maybe this surprised a few people. He spoke to me about the lack of sustainability discussion at Cannes Lion 2024, and we touched on that in the last episode, where we sort of said it's maybe, I think it was Phil Acton who said it's been bubbling under the surface a little bit, in that there's been the, new GARM launched a sustainability initiative earlier in the week. There have been some discussions about it, but Ed, in the clip, sort of goes on to say that he thought that was going to be a bit more front and centre than it was, and I think a few people feel that way.
Yeah, well, I maybe the GARM initiative will get a bit more cut through after Cannes, after the madness of Cannes over. I think the industry needs slightly better frameworks to frame sustainability around and I think maybe the GARM will be something that kick-started again.
Here, Ed's insights right now.
I think the biggest surprise for me, I was expecting to see almost every panel have at least like a sub-narrative or a question around sustainability or around impact and how brands are using marketing activations and content to connect with consumers in a way that they really value, particularly like younger consumers. And I've just been really surprised that whilst there have been a lot of sustainability fringe events around the edges, in the Palais, in the kind of the main big headline talks, it's really been absent. And I think we're going through this weird period of like, we've gone from greenwashing to green hushing, and I really feel that this year. I feel like everyone is a bit, unless you're really deeply in that space, everyone is like nibbling around the edges, but not really willing to bite. So yeah, for me, that's been the biggest surprise, to not see sustainability more kind of mainstream featured across all the kind of headline events and acts.
Yeah, I think emphasising what Ed's said there again, the fact that sustainability is one that you just can't sort of forget and let go of. And he was saying he's been around that a lot this Cannes Lion, because he sort of came into it expecting it to be at the forefront. But as he said in that clip, it feels like those that have been leading the sustainability charge have been a little bit of a smaller bubble, perhaps. And it's one that, again, just needs to be re-emphasised front and centre. Phil Acton spoke about it on the previous episode. So did Jason Megson. So it's one that can't be forgotten, can it, Robin?
No, absolutely. I think it does need to be. It can't just be a bit of a footnote in your planning.
Here we are putting it front and centre. Everyone get back on sustainability watch. There's a lot of great work being done in the area. But Robin, over to you. What has been your biggest learning or takeaway from Cannes Lion 2024?
Oh, that's a good question. I think a nice learning came from the roundtable that the DMA hosted in partnership with us, and I was the host of that. I had some really great minds on there from various brands, and you can read up on that on the PMW website. But it was practical applications that brands are using now to incorporate generative AI and more predictive AI into their marketing. And there were so many great insights. But the one that came through was like, there was a saying about AI that came out that was like, AI isn't going to take your job, but someone using AI will. And that felt powerful and it felt pithy, but I sometimes think that's a bit of a counterintuitive saying because it made everyone panic a little bit. It made, I've got to be using AI in everything I'm doing. And when I heard the use cases from some of the brands like Mars Pet Care and American Express around the table, they were saying what they did in the end was they focused on 2 or 3 efficiencies they could find early on in their exploration of using generative AI, and from that they had some really good work. Already got some really good working practices for things like creating briefs and things that a lot of marketers just don't like to do. And they found ways of using generative AI to do it better that worked for their brands. And they didn't worry about trying to do everything with AI. They just got good at 1 or 2 things. And from that, they got the confidence to use AI in more use cases. And I think it's that iterative approach to AI that I think you should all be thinking about. It's like maybe to have a bit of a framework to begin with. What 10 problems could it solve? Focus on the one where you think it could really help your business, give you an efficiency, either in the creative stage, performance marketing stage, or at the strategic stage. Focus on that, and then from that, it's a skill you might learn and go, oh, actually, I can apply it to another part of my marketing workflow. And that came across from everyone, even Ollie Share at Boots was talking about that sort of thing, and having insights fuel that.
I think it's one where you sort of just solve the first problem, solve problem number 1, then you move on to the next.
Yeah.
And you just get those little wins and build and build and build.
Don't worry about FOMO of trying to get AI into everything. Just try and get good at one thing and then you'll just kind of use it as a building block.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just managing the expertise, and you've got to understand that it's not all going to come at once. You've got to build it up gradually.
You've got to learn a new language as well in many ways, prompt engineering and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I just noticed as well, I've left the window open in the apartment, and that's picking up a little bit of noise, but I guess it adds to the atmosphere, don't you think, Robin? The candemonium.
Yeah, no, we want atmosphere on these ones. Otherwise,
you want to give me a difficult editing job because every time you pivot to look at me, you don't bring the mic with you.
I'm sorry about that.
That's fine. As I said, it's going to be the raw, largely unedited audio here, and that's going to add to the candemonium and the atmosphere. My biggest takeaway from this year in learning, and it's been an awful lot of learning being my first Cannes Lion, and truly, the one that I'm going to take away and remember is you just sometimes need to say no. You cannot take every single meeting possible because, unfortunately, Robin, I can't teleport. And my schedule this week was built for somebody who could get from A to B instantly. And it turns out I get from A to B by jogging sweatily with my backpack on through a crowd of people.
Joe, I just want to make sure the listeners understand, I'm not forcing Joe to do all these meetings. The way you framed that was like, I set up Joe a calendar of like 30 back-to-back meetings.
No, it was self-inflicted.
It was self-inflicted. Just want to clarify that with our listeners.
Totally self-inflicted. I just wanted to get out there and talk to people. And the meetings have been great. Like we're hearing, a lot of the discussions I've had from many of them throughout the week. They've been terrific. I wish I could put it all in the one place. But it's been a super great learning curve for me. And next year, bigger and better. But the number one thing I'll do is make sure I've got good shoes on and make sure I've got a schedule that's tenable.
But absolutely. But if you want to carry on those connections and want to go to a big event, of course, there is PMW Unlocked in March.
PMW Unlocked in March.
Perfect time between Cannes and, after Christmas and all that. And PMW Unlocked is just getting bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger, taking over the Business Design Centre in London, and not a 15-minute walk from one end to the other. It's a big space, but it's not that big a space.
Yeah, Angel Islington, it's just as glamorous as the French Riviera.
Yeah. For anyone who's never been there before, trust us on that.
Yeah. By the way, that wasn't a planned plug, actually, at all.
For those of you who have been to Angel Islington before and the French Riviera, shh. We'll move on now to some of the expert takes here before Robin and I go completely into a state of delirium and forget what we're doing. Geoffrey Martin, excuse me, I was corrected on that front, the CEO of Augury, he was very good with his time, actually, and we had a terrific discussion about the fact that he's a Cannes convert. He got down to Cannes this year and he said he didn't have high expectations, but just how productive it's been had really, really surprised him. And he's become a bit of a Cannes convert when he didn't expect to. And I think I found that interesting personally, but Geoffrey was saying that it was the biggest interesting thing for him as well. The fact that he came here with low expectations and it really, really delivered something big. So let's hear from Geoffroy now.
So this is my third Cannes as the leader of Augury, and initially I was a skeptic of Cannes. I say, okay, well, this is just going to be another of these industry events. And I'm a convert. I mean, I've been a convert since the first one because it's a unique place where the entire industry is gathering from all over the world to talk about what really matters to them. So what's was interesting is 3 years ago, some of the main themes were around retail media and AI. Last year, it was all about AI and cookie deprecation. And this year, it's about retail media, connected TV, AI, and cookie deprecation as well. So what's really interesting to me is really together with industry experts, either them being clients or partners like agencies or partners like technology companies, to really figure out how this industry is going to navigate a world that has to be privacy first, because the regulators demand it, the users demand it, and we know that there's going to be some massive changes in the ecosystem with the deprecation of third-party cookies. So how as an industry we're going to make it work going forward in a way that's going to continue to allow us to make business, and in a way that is going to allow us to respect people's privacy and to comply with regulation.
I got to say sorry to Geoffroy too, because I know I'm butchering the pronunciation. It's spelled like what I know to be Jeffrey. But Geoffroy, I've got no French accent. It's so appalling. I've got this terrible Australian accent. I feel like all these lovely wait staff talking to me in their French accent, they've all got brilliant English, and I just feel like I'm letting everyone down with a mullet, a mustache, and an Australian accent.
I think the important thing is, Joe, you tried for him.
I am trying, truly.
Yes.
Moving on as well, Tony Gemma, the Vice President of Global Head of Yahoo Creative, he had a really interesting point to make, and you'll hear from him in just a moment, going back to something we spoke about earlier, which is the convergence between media and creative, that idea of brand formats, because he's actually heading up a creative team where people are coming to them asking for output and metrics and data and delivery, and it's a really interesting integration, I think, that people are starting to look for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is, the creatives do need to have a little bit of a data hat on. You don't need to be an absolute data scientist to absolutely embrace creativity, but you do need to have those insights to justify what you're doing, I think.
Yeah, totally. So hear from Tony now. He's got a really interesting take on all things brand formats, which we love.
I mean, I think what's probably most interesting for me this Cannes is the conversations had here at a time, I think at a time when a lot of brands and agencies are looking for efficiencies and value, is the conversation around how creative plays more of a role in performance and outcomes. And I don't think that's always the case, especially at a conference like this. We talked about media and creative coming a little closer together, and we are a creative team that supports a DSP. And so those conversations are very pertinent. And I don't think they're getting much of that value in the community. And so to say, hey, if I have creative friction and I'm doing all of these things, yet I'm spending all of this time on, identity and targeting and supply optimization, I'm missing half the equation of my advertising. And I think without that 50%, you're never going to quite reach that goal that you want. So it's good to see the community thinking about creative in that context. Quality is going to drive both brand and performance.
Thanks to Tony for that great insight. And I know, Robin, you just mentioned the fact that marketers don't have to be a data scientist, but you've got to have your data hat on a little bit, those creative marketers, excuse me. This next person we heard from is actually married to a data scientist.
I gave you a perfect segue there.
So good little segue into that. This is Brittany Blanchard, the Executive Vice President of Digital Media at Media.Monks, who I really got to know this week, and we had a terrific time together. She did some video content for us too, which will be on the website soon. And my first ever Cannes Lion panel that I had the pleasure of moderating was with Brittany of Media.Monks and Dave Sergan, a shout out to him from Meta as well. And that was a really great discussion about, I'll give you one guess what it was about, Robin.
Was it generative AI?
It was indeed generative AI, but it was a really enlightening one, an insightful one. And Brittany and I sort of followed up on our discussion after that panel, just talking about it was her first Cannes Lion as well. So it was both of our first Cannes Lion. And we both were going on about, all the things that we've learned and we've taken away from here. And again, going back to why we're all out here, Brittany was telling me that the value of Cannes Lion is really the most interesting thing for her. And that's been her number one takeaway, is she can just understand why people are all here. So we'll hear that clip from Brittany now.
Okay, so this is my first time in Cannes. And I think one of the things that's really been interesting and surprising for me is the variety of experiences that you can have here at Cannes. You can have 10 different people who have 10 completely different experiences. It's a little bit of choose your own adventure. And one of the other things that's really stood out to me is the value of having all of these industry professionals in one place, having conversations about work for 4 days straight. It's been really great to ideate with people, to make connections that I otherwise wouldn't have had. I've been surprised sometimes to find kind of my people who, share my perspective on some things like measurement or like the role of performance in the AI revolution and all of that, and to make those connections with people I otherwise wouldn't have crossed paths with. So I think that's been really fantastic.
And that, what Brittany said there, Robin, it really does ring true, doesn't it? Just the value of being here in Cannes for the festival, just at the very least putting in FaceTime with people that you don't otherwise have the pleasure of seeing.
Yeah, I think it will be. It's difficult for everyone in marketing to get out here. It does have a sort of restrictive price barrier to get here, but I think for a lot of people it is the one thing to be at each year, and it does kind of cement that presence. So I can see why that gives you the boost you need in a year. It can be priceless.
It's a real sort of community, I suppose, this crazy industry that we spend our time covering. It can be a lot at some stages, and it can get quite overwhelming. But there has been, and you've spoken about it all week, Robin, a sort of really positive vibe and atmosphere around. I think there's been a great sense of community just from everyone in Adland, and I hope that's sort of come through those who have been following on from Cannes Lion from afar. And I think there's great value in just following on from the news that's coming out of it, not just creatively, but also on the performance front, because it might incline people to sort of invest in either getting themselves out here or engaging in some more discussions around it, because the hot topics truly have been all about performance. So it's been a real pleasure. And to round out with our final insight of learnings and takeaways from Cannes Lion 2024, Chris Parnell, the co-founder and CEO of Kairos Group, he talks about AI and community as something that he's really learned a lot about here in Cannes Lion. So we'll hear that final expert insight clip of these Cannes Lion miniseries podcasts from Chris now.
I think AI has been the biggest conversation point. I think it's kind of like AI bingo. Here is my honest view. But what I was saying about those sub-communities, niche audiences, and actually resonating with people on a more of a deeper level, and taking global campaigns and localizing those to audiences was a great example yesterday by P&G about how they take a global brand platform and make it relevant to literally towns within Greece. It's like, I think that idea of localization of those communities in those specific locations, and not just thinking about it from one campaign reaches all, is what I've seen the most here. And again, a point around AI is just is here, and it's here to stay, but do not remove the human creativity element as well.
And that's that on the expert discussions. So that sort of brings a close all of the hectic meetings that we've had over the past 4 days and the discussions. Thank you to each and every one of the talking heads who gave me some time and offered some really valuable insight. I hope you listeners at home are really, taking a lot away from that, because those discussions we had were really, really enlightening and insightful. Before we wrap up, Robin, should we say highlight, lowlight, Cannes Lion 2024?
Oh goodness, I forgot we were going to do this bit. Yeah. Highlight. You want a highlight for me? Yes.
Highlight or lowlight, whatever one hits first. Let's do both. We'll do both.
A quick highlight. Well, it was nice actually. In an earlier podcast, we were talking about Amazon's generative AI put within product images, where smaller retailers that can't always afford massive creatives could put amazing, nice backgrounds to their products. And I felt like that's something like marketing of the future, where you could repurpose creative and scale it very quickly. And I actually got to meet the person that created that, Jay Richmond, Vice President of Product and Technology at Amazon Ads on Amazon Port. And he was such a lovely guy, and he was so enthusiastic. He basically said his last year had been generative AI and optimizing the performance of campaigns. So it was really nice to actually meet the person. And so everything about that was really exciting, because it's nice to see, like, having talked about it half a year ago, to actually meet the genius behind it all. And Amazon's got exciting plans to take it out of the product advertising area and into its entire portfolio of advertising, whether that's on Twitch, whether that's on its streaming channels. And I think that might be one of the interesting features of performance and creative, where you can really scale your creative, and the generative AI is doing quite a lot of the work for you to make that work across all platforms.
That is really cool, and you sort of get to put a face to a name that you otherwise, it had been in the ether, and it's a little bit like meeting a celebrity. But it's always, they always say, don't meet your heroes.
Oh, no, he was very humble. He came from
it's lovely when you do, and they're great.
He came from a Spotify background, and you could see he was just buzzing with enthusiasm for his products, and he was coming through on the panel. It's really quite sweet. But to see him also, he was very much a genius in his own right.
You just got to respect that, and people like that, they're always so. They give you energy, I suppose, and they make you feel good about things. What's been my big highlight of Cannes this year? I think it's just been the fact that you really feel like everything you're doing out on the Croisette and in on the Palais is stuff of consequence. And a highlight for me is sort of a young journalist. It's my first time out here. It's just been a real treat to get amongst that, and it's been a really sort of learning experience. I feel like personally, it's been a great opportunity for growth. In an international press room, you've got some of the biggest brand titles and publications out there, and you're just mixing it with some of the elite. It's very big leagues, so that's been a super good highlight for me.
Yeah, welcome to the big leagues, Joe.
Welcome to the big leagues, and PMW's here to stay, that's for sure. I hate that we've done the highlights first, because now I guess we're going to round out the mini-series with our lowlights, but why not, hey? I feel like I know what yours is going to be, and I know it's pretty humorous, so the listener will enjoy it.
No, I wasn't going to say that one. I don't want to... Okay, well, I got locked out of the apartment. Is that the one you were going to say? I don't know. But it was not my fault, listeners. But the handle broke in the apartment, and I was locked out. And there was a very angry French locksmith who was very helpful, though. But he was not very happy because it was 11 o'clock at night. And I made sure that Joe could get back from his Spotify beach party without having a nasty surprise and not being able to get into the apartment.
No, but yeah, I'm so surprised that you were just sitting here working away late at night and you didn't think to call anyone to say, I'm trapped, I'm outside the apartment, the locksmith's taking a bit of time, can I come and join you? What are you guys up to?
No, I had some lovely Haymarket colleagues look after me. I didn't realise they were my neighbours, so that was nice.
Yeah, it's been nice just bumping into everyone around here, actually. It's a who's who of what's what. Did you have a different low light in mind that you wanted to share?
No. I think that'll do for now. But yeah, I've missed a few meetings, and apologies to people I did miss. But that's all I can say. But Joe, what was your low light?
My low light, actually, I've decided, came right around one of my favourite parts of the trip, and it was when last night, to sort of see how the sausage is made, what we're getting up to in our very limited free time here at Cannes. Last night after the campaign party, you, myself, Celine from our commercial team, we went and got Mackies in, and that was a lovely chance for us to all just share a meal together. We are on the French the Croisette, the French Riviera, some of the best restaurants in the world, and we're like, you know what, it's 10 o'clock, let's all go get a nice meal in for tea. We all hit a Mackey's, and I actually really enjoyed it because I thought that was great. The one thing was, I ordered takeaway without realizing you'd both ordered to the table to have a sit-down meal, and it just took 35 minutes to come out, and I was just standing there on my own by this window feeling like a real loser who's waiting on his backers.
If anyone doesn't know Joe, he's very food orientated and motivated. But I think we all didn't. We weren't in our best moment that one. I think. Yeah, we all seem to fail in some way with that simple task of getting McDonald's.
It's just so funny because it brings you back down to earth because you're at the highest high of yacht parties and beach parties, and you're up and down, feeling very high society and hoity-toity, I suppose, at some of these, these crazy hotels, and then, just getting your late night Maccas in really humbled me.
Absolutely,
so that was that.
Humbling moment.
Robin, I think we'll leave it there before we go completely off the rails. As always, thanks very much for joining me throughout the week here on the Cannes Lion mini-series podcast. We'll have, after this one coming out, we do still have our Gen AI special coming with Duncan Southgate from Kantar, of course. Duncan Southgate from Kantar. That's coming in a few days' time. So keep an eye out for that. That's where we'll really get into the nitty-gritty, and that's for all our tech heads out there. So look forward to that. In the meantime, Robin, thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Joe.
And as always, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you, the listener, for very patiently sitting in and enjoying each and every episode as you do. We've had a really, really good response to the Cannes Lion mini-series so far, so I thank you all for that. Please do keep up those positive ratings and reviews, and feel free to get in touch with me with any sort of thoughts or comments about the show. Always appreciate that. And as always, if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice. As I said, we'll be back shortly, a few days following this one's release, with the Gen AI special to round out our series of Cannes Lion mini podcasts, which are all about 40 minutes each. So I don't know how many they are, but it's a mini series, I suppose. After that, sit tight with bated breath for another fortnight when we'll be back with our more traditional style performance marketing unlocked podcast. Thanks again for tuning in, and bye for now.